He should be the most furious black man. He has a right to be. He has a justified right to be angry. Because if you don't, 40 years ago we were still going through the civil rights era. So the same racist, oppressive, depressive people who were in power then are still alive today. And I have to give it up for the black men 60 years and over, for them to still have the courage to stand and stand before power and speak truth to power and not have that same energy and anger left inside them, but to progress and move our nation. And so we as this emerging class of people, we need to learn from that and go to the next level. So I say, the church is right now in a place where we can bring the truth to the politics through our faith. And let the
Good afternoon. I'd first like to begin with God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. Praise and thanks belongs to God, and peace be upon all of his righteous servants whom he has chosen. I'd like to give some clarification about who I am, my organization, very briefly before I go into my comments. I am the executive director of the Michigan branch of the Council on American Islamic Relations, which we have CARE, the acronym stands for. There are 32 chapters throughout the United States of America, and I am the head or the chief of the Michigan branch. I'm also a associate or assistant imam, and imam in the Muslim tradition means roughly a prayer leader or preacher, and I serve in that capacity at the oldest mosque for African Americans in the United States, called Masjid Wali Muhammad, formerly known as Temple Number 1, which was started by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then in 1975 that movement then transformed into mainstream or quote-unquote Orthodox Islam. So I wanted to clarify that for you. My brief presentation is going to deviate slightly from the two eloquent speakers that came before me, and that I think that it's important for you in this audience to get somewhat a grip or a better understanding of who exactly are the African American Muslims before we get into what our ideas are as far as faith and politics, because there are not a lot of writings about our community. Many times our community is cast into being followers of Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, or from the other end of the spectrum, having some sort of allegiance with some type of foreign expression or foreign practice of Islam. And both of these are in fact extremes on the bell curve, if I can say. They're not what constitutes the mainstream African American Muslim community. Out of approximately 7 million Muslims in America, about 2 million of them are African American. And I'm telling you this, or trying to convey this number to you, because this is a very sizable population within the African American community of those who have some sort of affiliation, be they practicing the religion of Islam, or they accept that label upon themselves to be Muslim. And this is for our benefit as an African American people to help better coordinate our efforts between the Christian faith-based community and the Islamic faith-based community. And in all sincerity and honesty, there are powers that be that do not want to see the greater Christian faith-based community work with African American Muslims. And I think that one of the prime examples of this is when Minister Louis Farrakhan was organizing the Million Man March, and there were people outside of the African American community trying to dictate to us whether we could participate in the march and who should support the march and who shouldn't. I think that's a prime example. I'm not going to go into all of who those different people are in those forces, but we do know that's a reality, and they're still working hard today, and even working harder than ever. Also, for your information, let me let you know that within this group of 2 million African American Muslims, then you take those of voter age, I would roughly estimate that 10 to 15% of those of voter age in the Muslim community will not vote. They will not vote. And the reasons are that, one, they there's a type of rationalization that spiritual purification and knowledge of self, or self-empowerment as far as knowledge of self, is really the only key towards social reform for the African American people, not political activism. And then there's others who believe, and I believe this to be incorrect, that they believe that voting in and of itself outside of an Islamic civilization is un-Islamic and somehow violates the tenets and teachings of Islam. This is a reality, and some of those groups are, I'll give their names and we could talk about these afterwards, because I'm sure that many of you have never heard these names. But Jamaat al-Tabligh is a movement. Another one's called the Salafi movement, aka Wahhabis, which there's, by the way, no Muslim calls himself a Wahhabi on the face of this earth. This is something that's been disseminated in the media. If you go to Saudi Arabia, which I've traveled through, no one calls himself a Wahhabi. This is a term or a moniker used as a slur or to cast a shadow over a group of people who are basically puritanical and maybe more so, I would say, fundamentalist Muslims, like how Amish are fundamentalist Christians. Also, segments within splinter groups of the Nation of Islam also do not vote, because Minister Farrakhan's movement is only one group within several groups that call themselves the Nation of Islam. There's Salas Muhammad down in Atlanta, Georgia. There's a movement that came from John Muhammad, the brother of Elijah Muhammad, which is centered in Detroit, Michigan. And there are a couple of other movements. So the Nation of Islam is not uniformly led by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, as many of us would like to think. But the majority of the Muslim community is broken into three segments, I would say, amongst the African Americans. And the majority of those do vote and believe in political participation and activism. One of those, the largest group, being my teacher, Imam Muwaffaqi Muhammad, the son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which makes it the largest constituency of African American Muslims in the United States of America. There are those who I call independents, who do not follow any type of central leadership. And then the smallest group, which is the followers of Minister Louis Farrakhan, who do participate in political activism and voting. And by the way, most demographers say that the Nation of Islam, its core constituency of followers of Minister Farrakhan, only makes up about 50,000 people out of the 2 million African American Muslims. Just to give you some background on that, although he is very much respected, and I believe that he is not only one of the most influential leaders in the Muslim community, I believe he's one of the most influential leaders in the entire African American community. One thing you must know about political affiliation with Muslims, and this goes throughout the gamut, for the most part, African American Muslims, we will vote specifically on issues in conjunction with the character or the perceived character of each individual candidates. That African American Muslims do not give political allegiance to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. We do not give allegiance. We give our allegiance to our faith-based issues, those issues that we feel bring about the common good for all society, and we will not vote upon a character, or we will not vote upon a candidate who we feel has serious defects in his character. That is important for you to know. For example, Imam Muhammad leaned towards Bush 41 over Dukakis in the 1988 election. So Daddy Bush, a lot of African American Muslims actually leaned towards and voted for Bush 41 over Michael Dukakis, who I believe was from this state, because the community had serious questions about Michael Dukakis' character. Also, however, let me say this also, that based upon these common issues relating to bringing about the common good and social justice, African American Muslims